Dune Writer. How do I politely decline a man's sexual advances on the first date? I want to get to know them first before anything sexual. Okay, I think this is a great question. How do I get to know, how do I politely decline their advances? Well, tell them, well, one thing is you can say is before you're physically intimate, that you like to do an STD test. This would be one thing to initiate, and that kind of delays and stalls the conversation a little bit. But I think what you're really describing is someone who's coming on to forward sexually. You know, I remember a friend of mine would say, what about me? What am I doing that creates the invitation to come on to me so sexually? What am I doing that's causing you to come on to me so sexually? I would like to know what I'm doing, because I'll be candid with you. Before I'm physically intimate with someone, I prefer that we build trust together. I prefer that we establish some agreements between one another. I prefer that we have a civil conversation about our sexual past in relationship to possible diseases. So you can do it from a politically diplomatic way. But I'm projecting here a little bit, Dune, but I suspect there is an overt coming on sexually versus just, hey, men will throw up trial balloons, but I wouldn't, men will test boundaries a little bit, but I wouldn't, like a man might say something like, are there any cobwebs growing down there? That might be throwing up a little, but again, it might be just throwing out a casual sexual innuendo versus coming on strongly sexually. I would say if that's the case, then be diplomatic about it and say, hey, what am I doing to give you the impression that I'm interested in physical intimacy right now? I prefer that we build trust. And I'm looking for a man of character who is also patient to wanting to build trust, to build a relationship with me. I think that would be a better way to approach it. Let me know what you think about that. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, because I do believe, look, men who lead with sex, that have sex on the brain, oftentimes they're just in it for the short run. They have a short-term mating strategy versus a man who has a long-term mating strategy of wanting a significant relationship. He's patient on a sexual level, might throw in an innuendo or a little bit there to test boundaries. But that's how I would differentiate that, by being diplomatic about it. Okay? Hey, I want to hear your thoughts on what I just shared. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. Jill says, where can I get a copy of this? I think there's a transcript button. You can press a transcript button, get a copy of that. Jill says, goes on to say, this is amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Ginger wants to come back and say, we both feel afraid of rejection. Folks, nobody can reject you. Nobody can reject you. When you genuinely care about yourself, someone might not want to pursue a relationship with you, but that's not a rejection. That's just a misalignment. I think it's time to reword this thing called rejection and start just calling it misalignment with one another. And if it's not right for one, it's not right for both. Coming back to that sexual person, if somebody's coming on sexually and that isn't right for you, and he's like, I don't want to be with you. What's that saying? Rejection is God's protection. I believe that there is no such thing as rejection unless we reject the self-love, that we reject the love within ourselves. That is usually what happens when somebody chooses not to pursue a relationship with us. We oftentimes internalize it as if something is wrong with ourselves. And I'm here to say, nobody can reject you unless you reject yourself, Ginger. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what I just shared. Post a comment below. All right. Thanks, Ginger. Okay. Let's see what else we've got here. Janet is in the house. Why do many men start out with sexual innuendos from the jump? It's such a turn off. Because we have sex on the brain. I can't think of a first date I've ever had where I haven't had sex on the brain. I'm a guy. I'd like to think I'm a respectful, quality guy. But I mean, listen, part of the reason why we want romantic relationships is for sex. Otherwise, everything else is platonic, whether it's friendships or family, it's all platonic. I mean, sex is the whole point of romantic relationships. So why do we start off that way? Because we have sex on the brain. Just like my mother said, you know what? Whatever your dad said, I took it with a grain of salt. Janine says, if a man starts off with any sexual innuendos on the first and second date, he's not a gentleman. Next, if you made any hints and comments or like, it's your fault. Hey, again, the thing is, I guess it depends on the context and if there's a vibe going on. I would say a blatant innuendo that wasn't invited in, if there wasn't some flirtation. But if there's been a bit of flirtation, I wouldn't get too picky on this. At least I don't think you should. I think you should recognize that men operate this way. We just kind of do operate this way. We operate from a place of sex on the brain. Doesn't make, again, character really matters most. If you built the deep roots of trust with one another, that's where character matters most. In the early stage of dating, again, I'm not trying to suggest giving men a pass here either. Again, if it's overt and blatant and just it's sleazy, that I don't agree with. But if it's just a playful remark here or there, I wouldn't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Sometimes, lust and limerence can take over, but doesn't mean that the person's a bad guy. Anyways, just my thought. Janet says, I never say any word sexually, and I'm tired of this. I get it. Again, I am definitely talking about the difference between just a casual little conversation versus overt. I do agree. If it's overt, I would say I could see how you'd be very tired of it. If they only are thinking about you from a sexual perspective without wanting to know any other facet about your life, then I'm full agreement. That's next. Okay. Oh, Janine has an interesting comment. Are you dressing very sexy? Too sexy for your age? I do believe some women can be provocative. It doesn't give men permission to disrespect a woman. I don't believe that. But sometimes if you're looking sexy, it's hard not to think of you in a sexual way. That doesn't invite, that just because you've done that. But again, we men are, simple creatures. And if we're really attracted to you, again, the difference between sleazy and overt versus a casual innuendo. Okay. All right. Thanks, A. I want to hear your thoughts on what I just shared. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. Okay, let's keep going here. Jill wants to know, can you send the link for the dating vows? Here's the link. Get a free copy of my dating vows here. Just go to jonathanasley.com/dating vows. jonathanasley.com/dating vows. Okay. All right. Let's see what other comments we have here. Rhonda says, question regarding sex on the brain. Does it matter if you're attracted or not? You mean for us men? I think of the line that Billy Crystal said in the movie When Harry Met Sally. He says, she's asking, can men and women be friends? And he says, men want to have sex with women. She goes, what about the unattractive one? He goes, hey, we want to have sex with them too. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, again, sex is a very powerful need. Again, I'm not absolving anything, bad behavior in this regard. I'm simply just pointing out that, we can be driven by our sexual desires. Again, there's a big difference between sleazy, overt versus just a casual innuendo. Okay? All right, great question. Thanks so much, Rhonda. I appreciate that. Okay, Lulu says, yes, sex on men's head all the time. Wanting sex doesn't mean they want a relationship. Now, that's a very good point. Just because a man wants sex doesn't mean he wants a relationship. And just because a man wants sex doesn't mean he doesn't want a relationship. Okay. It just simply means he wants sex. Okay. And so, but again, just because a man, this is why you ladies, you've been told men are hunters, men love the chase. Well, yeah, we oftentimes hunt sex. That doesn't mean we're hunting. Do you guys think men will run around going, I'm hunting a relationship, I'm hunting a relationship? No, we hunt sex, but that doesn't mean that we're not capable of a relationship. This is where discernment comes in. This is where asking better questions in the early stage of dating can put the odds more in your favor, and also taking a little time to build trust before you're physically intimate with someone. So great point there. Thanks so much. Okay. All right. Lulu. A man told me about men over 50. If he's not attracted to a woman, they don't want to have sex with her either. Is that right? I mean, here's the thing. It depends on if alcohol is involved, okay? If alcohol is involved, a man might want to have sex with a woman he's not attracted to. Now, he most likely isn't going to pursue a relationship with someone he's not attracted to. Let me repeat that. He's probably not going to pursue a relationship with someone he's not attracted to. But again, if you're out, you've had a couple drinks, he might pursue physical intimacy. Just for a one-night stand. Again, there's always exceptions to the rules. These are just some generalizations. They're not absolutes. But I will say this, if alcohol's involved, oftentimes a man might push sex even if he's not attracted to a woman. Is this sinking in? I want to hear what you have to say. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all. All right? Okay. Sassy points out it takes time to build trust and a connection, so I don't want to hear anything sexual from the guy on the first few dates, since I want him to get to know me first, learn this from the past. Again, I get that. You may not want it. I'm just saying is if a guy threw out one sexual innuendo in a playful, flirty way, I wouldn't necessarily throw the baby out with the bathwater. Now, he should know how to read the room. In other words, he should be able to know that if that was said, it isn't going to affect you. Now, again, men make mistakes. This is the other piece you have to be able to understand. Men make mistakes. Even good men make mistakes. Let me repeat that. Even the good ones make mistakes. Doesn't necessarily mean, again, you should throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's just my suggestion. You can decide how to decipher that for yourself. Hey, I want to hear what you think of that. Post a comment below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Okay, let's keep going here. Linda points out something here. Men aren't the only ones who search for sex, ladies. Some women do. That's exactly true. I've known women who have propositioned me on a first date, ladies. That has happened to me. I've been propositioned on a first date. Women oftentimes have just as much strong sexual desires as men. So I wouldn't discount this understanding that men and women are sexual creatures, particularly from a romantic point of view. So again, you have to look at the big picture at a person. You have to look at the big picture. Are they kind? Are they considerate? Do they seem to have their act together? Do they communicate in a kind way? Again, sex is part of the process. Don't pigeonhole yourself just because a guy threw out one sexual flirty innuendo in the conversation. Now, again, if it's sleazy, if it's overt, if it's just you can tell all he's thinking about is sex, again, that's, it's a no-no. I agree. And I'm not absolving them for bad behavior. And just because you dress sexy, that doesn't necessarily give them permission. I'm just simply here to say is men are sexual creatures and women are sexual creatures as well. Women can have sex on the brain just like men. Okay. Hey, I want to hear what you thought of that. Post a comment below. Okay.